Nikos de la Gramaticas, welcome back to Denting.
You said my last name this time. Nice.
I said it this time. I learned it this time. I've quoted you plenty of times up till this point, and that's precisely why I want to talk to you today. You've been creating content on LinkedIn on and off for a while now, but consistently the past few months. And I mean, we're friends. So for context, for people that don't know, we have an episode already up where we talked about Nikos being a leader, a captain of the men's water polo team, NCAA champion. Precisely why you're here this weekend, actually, for the alumni weekend, the Cal Aquatics Gala. But today we are going to talk about your LinkedIn posts, and essentially it's what we text about. I think for anybody that doesn't know us, we met via a blog post. I mean, yeah. So I posted a blog, and then you were like, I like the blog.
That's right.
And then I went, dude, come on the podcast. And you were like, let's get coffee first. Did coffee, did the podcast. And since then, I don't think there's been more than 10 days that we haven't texted something.
I would say that's fair.
Yeah, it's been a lot, and it's been a lot of back and forth.
And it's not like how you're doing. It's just like, oh, I read this quote, or like this idea is really cool. So yeah.
Yeah, it's essentially what we've done. So that's what I want to do here today. You've been posting a lot, and I think before we dive into your posts and learning the backstory of what made you write that, I am curious, and it's based on one of the posts that you reposted. What made you start posting on LinkedIn? What's the backstory, origin story for that?
For context, like I always thought, okay, I'm actually going to hold myself accountable. I said like too many times on the previous podcast. We're going to fix that this time. But for context, I always like creating. And I think going back to our previous podcast, what I had learned from being a captain is that I did, even though I was young, had some things to say that could help people. I am a big proponent of, you have to know what you're talking about. So I'm trying to be mindful and talk only about things that have worked for me and I've tested. But I do think that I enjoy putting out information that people can digest. That's, I think, the essence. What led me to write and start posting was I joined the LinkedIn health and wellness and sales group. It was very small, and they started their first cohort, and I was one of, I think, 20 or 30 people. It used to be called 8 Straight. Now it's called Holistic Sales Company. And it's really cool. It's by two guys who wrote on LinkedIn a bunch, and I follow them. And quite the reason why I joined this community is to connect with those people. And part of that challenge on the first couple of weeks was write a post almost every day and follow a bunch of other, daily habits. But one of the habits was to create a post. And I said, what the heck, I'll do it. And didn't think much about it. I would just get my random thoughts and write them down on my notes and then have my drafts. And then when it was time to post, I would post something. And that's what led me to post a couple of times. And what kept me posting last year a little bit was that a couple of my colleagues at work randomly slacked me and told me, hey, I actually really like what you posted. It actually got me to the gym. So there was a couple of people at Brax, my old company, where they did that. Which, yeah, and then my mom, who actually writes stuff and is a big fan of literature, she just said, you should keep writing. So, yeah.
What about, I'm hoping to be able to give the advice that was either given to me or that I wish I got?
That was when that's V2. Now that I'm more consistent in point, that's part of for example, you are a big component of this, and I'm not saying this because I'm here, but you are one of my, and it's a privilege to have you as a friend in that sense. You want friends that see the light in you in topics where you don't see it. And part of you was what would you write about? And for people that need to know this, you literally met with me on a Sunday and you gave me a PowerPoint presentation. So I think that led me to kind of structure a little bit more why I write and what I want to write and who I wanted to write for. And that leads to that, which is the easiest way for me to create and to post stuff without being afraid or ashamed, which is something I'm sure we're going to talk about, or, a lot of creators that start creating, if I can call myself a creator, is that, you're afraid of, am I good enough to say this, whatever. But if you're writing only for your younger self, the advice that you want to give or that you wish that you received, I think that's fair enough. So that's why I create and what prompted me to keep creating. Because in essence, in summary, I think that it's very valid to create the things that you wish you had 5 years ago when you started your journey. I think that's a beautiful reason to write. And that's what inspired me.
Let's get into it.
Okay.
Choose in advance the things you're going to suck at. In seasons of growth, oftentimes we have to forgo progress in some areas of life to focus on one. If you make that upfront contract with yourself, I think you can save yourself a lot of mental trouble and focus on excelling in your main field of focus. Now, the counter is that you should make a deal with yourself not to become complacent and do your best to maintain your level in those other areas that you are focusing on. It's a balancing act.
That's a good one to start. Okay, there's so many things. I'm gonna have you read it back to me because there's like segments to it. Like, first of all, it's you gotta choose what you're gonna suck at in advance when you're trying to develop yourself. Like, we have, let's call them like coins. We have 10 coins of energy. If you want to develop a new skill, you're gonna need to put most of your bank somewhere to develop that new skill. So that means that you're not gonna have enough coins, enough capital to distribute. So if we were to think about our life and our energy as a portfolio, you need to adjust to market conditions. So I think that part of it is understanding that, if I have water polo and school, and then I want to start a podcast like you, as student athletes and people who want to achieve things, we want to be 100% at everything, but mathematically that doesn't make sense. If you have 100 and you need to distribute it in 3 buckets, you're not going to have 100 in each bucket. And so you learn the hard way, I think, that because you're trying to do everything, you spread out, as you will know, you end up getting sick, not sleeping. You're like, okay, this is not scalable. Then you actually get pissed at yourself because you thought you could do it, which is arrogant, because there's people just doing the one thing and you're trying to do multiple things. So there's one, you have to acknowledge that you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. That's what I like to say. So that's part of it. And I recently read a really nice, I was listening to a podcast. This gym guy was like very scientifically focused. He says that the energy it takes to maintain something is much, much less than the energy it needs to grow muscle, for example. So like your current physical state, you can maintain it with like 2 times at the gym, he was saying. But if you want to like really grow, you got to go 4 times to 3 times and like really put in the work. So conversely, on the other side, don't get complacent because say like, oh, now I'm focusing on work, so I'm not going to go to the gym at all. It's like, no, you might not get the abs you wanted, but that doesn't mean you get to put 20 pounds. So I think that this post, actually, I like it because it has a lot of notions that I've been playing with recently, which is being smart with your time. So you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. But also like the age old that my ancestors used to say, like everything in moderation. You need to be smart. You need to be balanced. You can't just be like, boom, like you got to be honest with yourself and say, okay, we're going to keep this. We're not going to destroy what we built, but we're going to put most of our energy here. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best lessons I learned early on in this podcast from a guest was that the time you take off from something isn't a time to get worse. It's just a time to rest up. Like it isn't a time to get better, but it's also not a time to get worse. It's a time to maintain.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the key. It's so often we think we have to go full intensity. And when you're not at full intensity, you can do whatever you want. And that's not true. I think it's definitely about maintenance. And especially like once you get out of the D1 world where you're not being held accountable by a coach, what are you going to do about it? And it's so easy to work hard, play hard in college, but then you get out and you just want to play hard. And I'm talking physically, obviously. And I mean, I experienced that in my first couple of months when I was out, and it doesn't feel good mentally. It doesn't feel good physically. And
we had a long talk about it too. And I think it happens to everybody.
I think the moderation thing is definitely key. I talked about this with Angelina Anderson when she was here. It's from what the Stoics say about moderation, which is watering down the wine. So it's not saying don't have wine. It's not saying have all the wine. It's just water down the wine. And I think that's a good metaphor for it. Don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, we can get super theoretical, but you can think of the wine as the poison that you have to take that you can, okay, you don't need to like forfeit everything, but you need to forfeit a little bit. So that's going to hurt. So, so yeah, I agree with you on that 100%. And I think that I like that one because the reason I mentioned it super early is because I would like to write things that I didn't get to hear, the advice that I had to learn the hard way. But a part of it is also because I think that there is a subgroup of people in society where they make this super rough transition from sports to the adult life, and then they forget their other identity, and it can be really hard. And I think that if you set proper guardrails and guidelines inside of your head, and you set your mind right, you know how to maintain the healthy aspect of your body, so you can do a healthy mind is a healthy body and vice versa. I don't know if that is making sense.
Yeah.
But like attaching to what we're saying is that, okay, you need to have a very good understanding of what's going to happen and the mental model you need to have to be able to keep yourself at a certain level without being at like, D1 soccer, D1 football, whatever. So Yeah, it's very important. And it's a balancing act, but it's a beautiful journey, I think.
What about the harsh reality is that in life, you must sacrifice very often what you like for what you want the most. You can have anything you want, but not everything you want. And that's why your sacrifices say more about you than your successes ever will. Only you know what you had to give up to get to where you are. That's why you don't need anyone else's approval. And then you added, you can do a lot of things, almost everything, but not all at the same time. Prioritization is key. Every time I've sat down and clearly prioritized stuff, I've achieved more and been more content.
I actually forgot about that post, and yeah. I mean, again, you and I talk about this a lot. I think this is a line from Chris Williamson.
Yes.
That's
So
the line.
it was
The first one.
from a clip between Chris and Steve on Diary of a CEO. That's where we got the motivation to talk about this topic specifically.
Yeah, and I think this talks a lot. I think the people you and I follow, and I think that everyone who tries to stay on this journey of maintaining a physical wellness while trying to be aggressive and successful in the professional world ends up having a lot of moments with themselves, and they need to build that reputation and that relationship with themselves. And the reason I'm saying this is because throughout our life, and I'm gearing this towards any guy or gal who came out of college in sports, but this can also affect the people that didn't play in sports in college, but they still had to give up stuff. I think that, but going a little broadly, and I'll lean into this more, is just I care too much throughout my entire life about what people said and did and what they thought, and I never gave myself credit for the things. So those are like two really bad combinations. So I'm just learning right now to say, okay, these are my priorities and this is what I care about, and only I get to judge. Because like I've done this enough times where I've done the whole thing where I've gone out on a Saturday and on Sunday I couldn't work out and I was pissed. And yes, everybody else approved of my behavior on Saturday, but I didn't approve my behavior on Sunday. I think that's what this boils down to. And you've done this micro moment where you learn to say no because the Sunday practice mattered more to you and not to the other people. And I think that learning to do this and having that very clear and healthy communication with yourself essentially is what like makes the difference. The reason you and I came to this school and played sport in the school is because we said multiple times no in high school when everybody didn't even know how to say no. So I think that, going back to your point, and I'm jumping from thing to thing, but the essence is that you learn to say no. When you learn to say no, you gain a power of regaining your time and investing in other things that are going to give you what you want in the future. And I think the earlier you do this, the better. And the earlier you learn to translate this from the sports world to the professional and fitness world, like it's a game changer. So for me, it's just been amazing. Every time I've sat down and said, okay, is this event important to anybody? Not really. Okay, so we don't really have to go. And again, people say some things you don't have to go to anything, but I think some events you probably should go. But most events you don't. So unless it's somebody's really important, let's not get into the birthday conversation, but unless somebody's like birthday or like special occasion, you don't really need to go. So if you don't feel like it and you're going to feel much better on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, the earlier you realize that saying no is going to help you, the better it is. So yeah, I'm becoming a big proponent of that. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I've done this too many times. And yeah. And through that, I also learned the second part of the quote is basically learning to give yourself credit for saying no in the shadows and going through in the shadows so you can shine. Because, you know, people are like, oh, you got lucky. No, I didn't get lucky. You didn't get lucky. Nobody else got lucky. I think the universe is very fair. So we get what we proportionally put out. And when you put a bunch of no's and you protect your time, you get your outcomes later, I think.
I think also the key for that is just really being mindful of what happens when you do take care of yourself, when you do prioritize yourself. Because oftentimes in my life, whenever I felt overwhelmed, I realized that it wasn't that there was too much going on. It was that I just wasn't prioritizing things correctly.
Chaos.
So I wanted to do everything all at once. And you probably can do that in a weekend. You just have to prioritize what you have to do. Like one of the earliest teachings I had in my life from my dad is you can do what you want after you've done what you need to do. And I think that's the key. If you can really just focus on getting the job done in the space of the work that you have to do, whether that's homework or an assignment or literally any activity at work, after that, do whatever you want. But unless you finish that first, don't go off and fuck around, because once you do fuck around, then there's like another thing I think about is anytime I'm doing an activity, I think about the activity's ROI. So I think about like, all right, how will I feel in the long run? So yeah, in the moment, it sounds really nice to open this bottle of wine and stay up until 1, 2 a.m. just chatting. And it's really nice. And I think that's important. But if that sleep is going to fuck me up for the rest of the week, is that worth it? And I think the moderation there is...
Sometimes it is.
Again, sometimes it is. It really depends on the situation. But I think the moderation there is open the bottle at 4 p.m. Have it at 5. Have it at 6. You don't have to wait until 10 p.m.
Or is that planning? Because I think that's planning.
I think it's moderation because you're still doing it, but at the same time, you can still go to sleep early.
Yeah.
You don't have like you can do both and protect your sleep. That's what I'm trying to say. You can still open the bottle, but you can still go to sleep on time. And I think in the long run, that'll probably be the best solution to do both.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point because oftentimes advice either swings one way or the other, and the fitness advice like don't do anything. The reality is that most people just want to live what they call a balanced life, and I'm not here to choose and criticize what balance looks for each person, but you hit like the nail in the head. You can do everything you want. You just need to give up a couple things at first so you have a little bit more time and you take care of what your dad said, take care of the things that you have to take care of, and then you get to do a freebie. But also, moderate, but also be smart. You know that bottle of wine is better to open up at 4, or that pasta dinner is better at 4, not at 10 p.m. because you're not going to sleep very well. So yeah, I agree. I think that we're intertwining a lot of ideas, like saying no and planning, but also understanding that you need to give yourself some nuggets as you go through, and then also protect your energy as you say no, because that's really important.
Those nuggets, super important. So when Coach Mo was here, Cameron's coach, when Coach Mo was here, he told me like a fascinating idea. He said, when you go to a steakhouse and you're going to order that big steak, that big juicy steak at the end of the night, it's not like you don't enjoy the appetizers along the way. And that's what you need to do. Like you're working towards the big one. You have this big goal in mind, but that doesn't mean you don't enjoy the checkpoints along the way. And I thought that idea was just so good. It's having these checkpoints, these goals, tiny goals that lead to the big one.
And I'll add to that if you give yourself the right checkpoints at the right amount and the right type of time, you're never going to deviate. Because think about a cheat meal. Having every 2 weeks a massive cheat meal that derails you 3 days back, it's much worse than instead of doing it every 2 weeks, every week, have a smaller bowl of pasta or a smaller burger, which is what I'm trying to do with multiple things in life. Give yourself that lighter day on the gym. Give yourself a lighter day because you know that you're not going to burn out. So that way you ran the marathon farther at a better pace. So yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, you'd much rather have that 1 drink a week than wait for 10 weeks and then have 10 drinks all at once.
It's going to take you out for 3 days.
Yeah. Next one. And this is one of my favorite ones from you. Winning isn't always pretty. Checking all the boxes is not always pretty. Some days you just have to make it by. Some days you just win ugly. The gym session that you needed to get done might have been a bit slow. That LinkedIn post you wanted to make was not your best one. You didn't eat exactly what you were supposed to, but you avoided takeout. Those cold calls did not convert as you wanted them to, but you did them anyways. You won ugly, but you still won. Don't focus on the ugly. Focus on the win. Stack them up. Build that internal reputation with yourself. Consistency over everything. Sometimes you just gotta win ugly.
I love it resonated with people more than I thought, the whole win ugly thing.
It's so good.
I had plenty of friends text me about it and I was like, that makes sense to me. Like, my complaint with the motivational world that you and I exist on Instagram and where just not exist but with the content we consume is that the content for the David Goggins of the world and from the David Goggins of the world and the Jackos is oftentimes is created for the people who are on the one side of the spectrum, which is like they're not doing anything and they need to get out from the couch. I think that there is another subset of people, which I think you and I and a lot of athletes fall into, which constantly want to be excellent. I speak for myself. I know from you, and I know there's a lot of them out there. Wanting to be excellent is great. And I don't want to use the whole, I'm a perfectionist as an excuse. But oftentimes that mindset, if you lack the perspective, can hurt you more on the way. And that's where the win ugly means is that when you have a results-oriented mindset and you want to win all the time and you want to improve all the time, that's the keyword. When you're trying to improve all the time, you focus on the ugly because you want to make the ugly pretty. But sometimes in order to maintain momentum, you have to focus on the fact that you won. I won the day. It could have been really shitty. And at the time, because I know how I feel, I know how you feel, we feel like we're cutting ourselves slack, and that's okay. That's the most important thing I think to learn is that, again, and there's going to be a notion throughout the talk for sure, is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you need to give yourself that day, that talk, so you can keep the marathon. Like you give it to me through text, I give it to you, I hate the sentence because it's been overused, but you have to learn to be kind to yourself. And that is, when you win ugly, focusing on the winning side of things instead of the ugly, it's being kind to yourself. And that's what that post was about. Because I can drive myself off a wall if I don't do anything perfect. And then I do have people that love me around me and say, dude, can you look at your last week, what you've done? And today was just like, what, your worst day? And it would look like that, like you're good. And the last thing I'll say is that learning to win ugly and to appreciate the ugly is not self-sabotaging. Because if I win ugly one day and I keep the ball rolling, it's as much instead of having a shitty day and I go and whip myself, it's stupid of my hand. Instead of just saying, okay, what we had to do, let's go to bed, start again. Whereas if you say, I didn't get my full PR, whatever at the gym, maybe you get a worse sleep because you stress yourself more. You don't need to. So definitely something that people that are high caliber, whatever you want to call them, struggle with. And I think that it's a good thing to say. We won. Hey, fuck, that sucked. We won by 1 goal, but we won. Could have been much worse. We could have lost. So that's kind of the idea.
I think there's 2 main points from this, which is cutting yourself slack is one of them. And then appreciating the work that you are doing is a totally different thing. I think for the first one, I'll use the example. Our last phone call before this recording was, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. And it was at 5 a.m. because you just texted me. I feel so bad today. Like, I don't know if I can do this, whatever. And I immediately just called you because for some reason, I think it's easier when someone that understands the work tells you like, it's okay, relax. Like you need to hear it from somebody else. And it's oftentimes that we like reach out to that person that's going to be like telling me like, it's fine. And then sigh, relief. And it's like, all right, if even this person's telling me to do that, I'll do it. And I'm mentioning this because it was 2 weeks ago. I made this mistake. So one of my classes is 9 to 12 on Thursdays. So I had to split the run. I was running 16 miles that day. So I had to do 8 in the morning, 8 in the evening. But then I did some work that morning, like not workout related, just some work. Took me longer than I was expecting. And I didn't get the 8 miles in. So it was like 16 in the evening. No issue. But then I'm running in the evening. And that's, again, to me, just completely different. In the morning, I feel different. In the evening, a mess. And I couldn't run past 8. Like I felt terrible. And I stopped to just reset. And then I texted this friend. Exact same situation. He literally told me it's the most normal thing ever. Nothing's going to happen. Like, oh, you didn't hit 100 miles this week. You hit 92. Boo fucking who?
Like real talk. Who's going to check on you? Like you're the only one who's checking. Nobody gives a fuck.
No, but no, that's the thing though. You give a fuck. That's the issue. In my head,
yeah,
it is the fuck. I didn't get there.
Myself down.
I should have pushed more. Mm-hmm. I should have done more. That's not good enough. That is not enough. All these things that I think honestly, it has a great side to it because it pushes you to levels that are unexpected. But at the same time, he literally told me like, dude, nothing's going to happen.
Exactly.
For those 8 miles. Exactly. What will happen is he literally told me, if you were supposed to do more the next week, then yeah, you are screwed. But if you're just keeping the same routine for next week, you will be okay. Like, trust me. 12 weeks from now, when you run that marathon, he told me it like that's not going to make the difference. You're going to be okay. And sometimes you just need to hear it from somebody else.
Yeah, because you need the pendulum. You need the friend that's going to balance you out. I think the people you have in life, whether that's family, friends, partner, needs to balance you out. So if you have somebody, and rightfully so, we are off balance on that side. You want your friends to bring you back. If we were the opposite, we were too lazy, you would want your friend to tell you to get off the fucking couch and start running. So yeah, I totally agree. Super important. That's why your circle matters so much. Yeah,
because you're only going to ask that of somebody that you really respect. Like the guy that I texted for this, he runs like his mile time is 3 minutes, 56 seconds.
See, like I'm a hippopotamus, so I cannot even put that into. I only swim. Cannot put that into.
Like context. It's so just to give you perspective, like somebody that says I run a fast mile,
it's 5 minutes mile.
Like that would be crazy. 5 minutes is crazy.
Yeah, because I was trying to run miles during COVID. I would run like 9 minutes, so that makes sense.
Yeah, 3:56.
So he takes 3 laps when I take 1, basically.
Uh-huh.
Sweet.
So, I mean, that's the type of perspective I needed of somebody to tell me that. But I think the other part is also super important, which is acknowledging everything you've done along the way. I don't think I've told you this. To provide perspective for how I was doing throughout the years, I created a notes just in the notes app that had the year written at the very top. And then I would write out every month. And while I was progressing throughout the months, it was like, these are the big wins I've had every single month.
In life in general?
In life in general.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I felt like shit, I would just go back to that. Like, that's my biggest piece of advice for that type of thing, because we're always pushing, we're always losing perspective for the wins that we have in life. You know, like, I think the easiest thing is just that. Put the year at the top of your notes. And then from there, months, wins. And whenever you're feeling down, just go back to that note section and read it.
I'll add something to that. And that's something that's helped me tremendously, which you know how much you and I have quote unquote bonded over journaling, because that is a form of journaling, just digital. 2023 kicked my ass. It was a very difficult year for me for a couple of reasons. However, same way I wrote my wins, I love writing very detailedly about my hardest times for 2 reasons. One, because you can go back and say, look what you overcame. But also, it puts great perspective, I think. So you need to have your wins, but you also need to have your losses for 2 reasons. One, because you can tell yourself, look what I went through. Stuff that I talked about in the previous podcast. Like because I want to make this concise, but part of our psyche and part of not giving ourselves slack is that we also minimize the hardships we went over, and we don't give ourselves enough credit. Because if you tell yourself I jumped over, I don't know if this shows, but if you tell yourself I jumped this big of an obstacle, you're like, what? But the reality is that for any other person, this obstacle was this big. So if you really allow yourself for a millisecond to call it a big obstacle, then you'd be like, oh, look how far I jumped. So I'm actually good at this. So the reason I like my journals is because A, what you said, wins, so progress over time. But also when you look back at your losses, I think that one, it reminds you how strong you are, because everybody needs that. Because when you're going through a hard time and everything feels like it's falling on its head, you need to be able to see, like, look what I went through. Like this and this too. So you've gone through stuff. This too shall pass. And lastly, things are probably not as important as big as you think.
Yeah.
That breakup, we all thought in high school was going to be the end all be all. Like, that's why having older male friends is really good for boys. I don't know how it is for women. I can't speak to it, but having older guys be like, dude, been there, you're going to be fine. Whether that is, I missed the season, I lost the championship, somebody broke my heart, but then things happen. I think that's really important. So be able to do that with yourself in private. Like 2023, going back to that, I found my old journal. It was insane. Like, I read through my entire year, basically through the important months when I know when shit went sideways, like it's month of the year. I'm like, wow, like, look, I'm fine. So that's very, very good moving forward. And also to give yourself credit.
To combine everything there with like breakups and what that even means moving forward. So one of my childhood friends recently got their heart broken. All right. So, and it's, yeah. So this childhood friend, again.
Welcome to the gym.
Yeah, literally. No, actually in this case, it's on the flip side. It's a girl. So it's like one of my childhood friends.
She's welcome too.
Yeah, no, she's already there. But anyways, one of my childhood friends gets her heart broken, and she gives me a call, and it's like, this happened and that. And I was thinking about this for a while, and I started journaling about it, which is when I texted you that I went to the coffee shop. I was reading about the Mona Lisa. So the Mona Lisa is like this super famous global phenomenon art piece, right?
Sure.
Did you know that the Mona Lisa didn't become the global phenomenon that it is today until 400 years after it was created?
Oh, yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
And what happened? It got stolen.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So for 2 years, between 1911 and 1913, it was stolen by an Italian that believed that the art piece belonged in Italy, not in France. So it disappeared for 2 years. Put that into perspective. Those 720 plus days, I think if you're to the Louvre, you're freaking the fuck out. Like, you are tripping of, can't believe I lost this Da Vinci. Mm-hmm. This is the worst years of my life. This is so bad for me. Fast forward the next 100 years, that's what's keeping you alive business-wise. Everybody is going to the Louvre to visit the Mona Lisa. So for 2 years of your life, what seemed to be the worst thing possible that could have happened to you became the best thing ever to happen to you in the long run.
I was never expecting the story to go that way, but it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So again, put it into perspective. 2 years versus 100. Those 2 years, that 2% of its lifetime, modern lifetime, became like the worst part, but also the best thing that could have ever happened to you. And additionally, Da Vinci never found out. His actions never changed. The painting has been in the exact same way, but he died in 1519. So he never knew what his art became. He never knew it. He never knew that we consider him a genius. Ever. Does that mean he wasn't a genius just because people weren't validating him for it? And that's what puts a lot of things into perspective of, one, the worst thing in your life could become the best in the long run. And two, you don't need the validation from others for it to be the best.
That's fair. God, the whole breakup topic is the whole entire conversation and so. But yeah, no, I mean, things happen for a reason. I think that if you do that, and if you're truly religious or not, if you believe there's something up there, you want to call it universe, you want to call it whatever. If you really want something to go sideways, you build the mental resilience to say, everything happens for a reason. And I am very, knock on wood, I'm very fortunate. I consider myself very lucky in my life. So I think that whoever is up there, whatever is up there, that whatever you believe in, brought me this far. There's no way this ends here. So there's something here to be learned. Obviously, this idealistic, sometimes things suck. But if you can apply the framework, it brings you back to reality really easily, because it brings you back to the only thing you can control, which is your actions now, your feelings, your whatever.
Next one. Working out and staying active can be a pain. The best thing you can do to make it less painful, set yourself up for success on Sunday. Want to go for a run or a walk? Set your shoes next to the door the night before. If you want to go to the gym, prep the gym bag and leave it next to the door. This will eliminate friction, but also give you a gentle nudge that you made a commitment to yourself. Win the morning, win the day, then you win the week. Start small, aim small, and you'll also miss small.
Okay, that's two notions. One is the prep. The other one is the prep and the elimination of friction. The other one is the aim small, miss small. Like just, yeah. Big OCD person, for sure. But you have to make it, if you're trying to do something, okay, let's say the average expectation of somebody is to just do their work. So if you want to do your work and be in shape, you're already trying to do something that's above average. Is that a fair assumption? I think it's a fair assumption in our society nowadays.
75% of Americans don't exercise. CDC. So yes.
Yikes.
Read of that midweek. So yes, it is above average.
Good luck, guys. But so you want to do something above average. If you want to do something above average, you want to set yourself up for success. Like every athlete, yes, maybe you're able to jump into the game and play, but wouldn't you want to work out? Cool. Warm up. Yes, you want to warm up. All right. How can you make your warm up easier? You probably don't want to eat X amount of hours per week. So you just start thinking about I think the right word is being intentional. You start being intentional about what you want to do and then how you can help yourself. So when you're trying to do something that's extraordinary, there's going to be a lot of friction. So the more friction, involuntary friction that you can eliminate, I think it's the best thing you can do. And I think that besides, writing for myself, I also want to write out for the people that are trying not to just, die. They're just trying to live their life. I think you have to make the acceptance that, hey, life is difficult to do both things, which is working out and stuff. Let's figure ways to make it easier for us. Have a program, have your clothes, have your laundry done, be ready. And it's a big thing, which is prep on Sundays. The monster is bigger when you know the monster is there. And the monster is even easier to slay when the dragon, as they say, it's easier to slay when you know where you need to hit it, what you need to do, what moves it's going to do. So being prepared never hurt anybody. So that's one part. The other part is aim small, miss small. It goes from, I think we've talked about this before, but it comes from the Jordan Peterson quote that says to allow for progress, you need to set up the bar properly low. You need to be humble and say, okay, this is going to be, and this ties to our previous one, this is going to be a win if I do this much. You don't expect to go and hit a 450-pound PR deadlift on the first day. You just expect to go to the gym. So what that does, and I'm big on that, and a lot of posts have this, is they generate positive momentum. So those are the two things. You eliminate friction, then when you just start like eating the crumbs until you go and eat the entire thing.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree. I think also just like to that bit, I think beginning with the end in mind is super important. So if you know what the end goal is, it's so easy to build up to it. And I experienced that last time as well with the marathon, which is something we were talking about before this, which is, all right, I know that I need to wait. Like when I started running and it was 3 miles a day, 4 miles, 5 miles, 6, I could wake up, stretch for 5 minutes and go. It wasn't that difficult. But then you keep on adding, you need to take care of your stomach. You need to take care of the nutrition, the carbs, the electrolytes, all these things. And it becomes a process. But the only way you can lead up to that process is by knowing what's at the end. If you begin with the end in mind, it's so easy to do all the rest of these things. But if you don't have the end in mind, like it's all over the place.
That's true. If I can add something, is that this came from, I don't even know when I made that post. I think it was pretty recent, but this got inspired from a realization I had was that, so one of the 2 guys that I met on that community, his name is Kyle Willis. He's an amazing guy. I met him in person. He's, was a VP of sales, tremendous guy. He's also done Men's Fitness magazine cover, Men's Health, insane guy. And exceptional human, father, husband. You look at the guy and you say, okay, he has maxed or his work, like he's very, very spherical, as I like to say, covers a lot of things. And I have a lot of respect for him. So when I met him last year, I asked him, I was very inspired, but then I was like, okay, I cannot get there. I need to figure out the way. And he was very simple. He's like, prep yourself before. He talked to me. He didn't tell me directly, but his detail outlining of how I do it wasn't like, oh, I wake up at 4. His explanation started at like, I prep my meals. My meals are simple, so I'm eliminating friction and I'm prepared. Then I wake up and I do this and that. And I'm like, last year I was trying to wake up at 5 a.m. all the time. I would end up getting sick, underslept, whatever. I met Kyle, got the conversation, went home, wrote down a plan. I'm like, okay, if you want to wake up at 4:30 and you want to get 7.5 hours of sleep, how much is that? 4:30 minus 4.5, that's 12. And then you want another 3 hours, so you go to bed at 9. You need to be asleep at 9. What time do you need to be in bed? 8:30. I did that the next week. I started waking up at 4:30. No problem. So to me, that was just like a light bulb moment, which is like, it is like sports. If I want to do this, I just need to like backtrack it and realize, like they say, like set out that alarm to go to bed and stuff. So yeah, that conversation changed my life. And I had a similar one with a different mentor earlier this year, which like prompted me like, now I'm training twice a day. And I thought it wasn't possible. Psych. You can if you prepare. So that's the whole, for me, like preparation was just like everything. If you map it out and you live organized, you can endless possibilities.
Begin with the end in mind, 100%.
And then discipline equals freedom.
Next one.
Amen.
I think the capacity to work hard for long enough periods of time has to do with alignment. The best teams in sports go through the most grueling training camps. Players are aligned with their individual goals, team goals, and their entire group. So when the tough workouts come, they know their why. They make clear to themselves what they're working towards, a championship. They know that the people in their foxhole are there to give it all. They trust the process and their leaders. They have their why. And as they say, he who has a why can bear anyhow.
I don't know where you want me to, like, I think that's like pretty self-explanatory. I mean,
what can we learn from the athletes though? Like you did this in the D1 space. You guys won a NCAA title. And then after that, the team continued and won 3 back to back, right? But what does that look like in the real world? Because that's nice in the pool, that's nice in athletics, but how do you do this in real life?
I like that. That's a good question. And I like, because a lot of these ideas, you can tell, like I'm all of my ideas gravitate around the same thing. So this is going to go back to the one we talked before, which is when I'm putting the work in the shadows and I'm struggling, I know why I'm doing it. That's what gets me through. When I'm saying no to go out, I know why I'm doing it. That's what gets me through. I think that's the important thing. Like, I think like a lot of teams say this, like you have to pay the fee or like the price for excellence, like all that notion. That's what it is. Like you have to pay a fee to be excellent. You have to, I think the female rowing team has this, which is like own the expectation of excellence. That's what that means to me.
Own the expectation of excellence.
Yeah. You're expected to get destroyed on training camp. That's the fee to try to be excellent, not to be excellent, to try to. There's an entry fee to get into the game, whatever that game is, whatever the game you choose to play. But you have to understand, if you want to do it to an excellent standard, you have to apply that mindset. You can do it in like a mid-level, and that's okay. I'm not criticizing anybody, but to be like truly good, and I don't even think, like I'm trying to be humble and say, like, I don't even think I know what being truly excellent means. A lot of things, but I've been around some phenomenal teams, like my Cal team or like my national team, which is what inspired that post. It's like you have to know why you're paying the fee. You have to, in every transaction, whether that's money or that's me putting time, you have to know what you're getting out of. So that's why you have to be clear on your why. Because your why tells you like, I'm making an investment. So I'm not giving you money, you're giving me candy. I'm giving you time so I get championship later. But it's only my why that's convincing me that this is worth because I'm going to get championship later. Because it's not a, give money, take thing. It's like give. And because you know your why, you're cool waiting, thinking that you're going to receive later. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. I think if you know what the goal is, you're going to be willing to work for it. Is that what you're trying to say? Like, I think in the space of work in real life, you just have to define your championship and surround yourself with people that are thinking the same way. Is that it? So like, let's go back to the training camps, right? Like they're willing to do this because they know there's an NCAA title on the line at the end.
Same thing. Yeah. So I guess I didn't answer your question. I get what you mean. So in the real world, you have to define like, what is that? That is what manifestation is, by the way. If you think about it, in my opinion, manifestation is I know what's going to come. I know what I want to attract. And by telling myself what I'm going to attract, I do all the necessary steps. So to put it into more realistic terms, I want that promotion. I want to become a manager. I want to become a director of sales. I want to become a VP. I want to scale my own startup. I want to do. So this requires the necessary steps. You need to start in sales. You need to start an SDR. You need to be doing 100 cold calls a day. That sucks. And your final goal of VP of sales might be 17 steps ahead. But the why gets you through that, through the shitty days, which is a lot of them at the beginning. As like a lot of people that have done the thing, they tell you like at first, it sucks, man. That's why like that cleans up like 75% of the people because at first it sucks and you're not getting a lot of reward. But yeah, that's the point. As you said, and you said it before, I think, define your goal and then you'll be willing to pay any price or you'll know how much you're willing to pay.
Yeah, there's the classic, and I've referenced this so many times, Tim Grover. You don't have to love the hard work. You just have to crave the end result so badly that you'll do anything in order to get there.
That's super accurate. I think that the hard work sometimes sucks, and it's okay to say it sucks. We don't need to walk around saying, oh yeah, I love doing it. I mean, going back to what my post came from actually also the national team, which we were 17 years old, just grinding our asses out for 3 months in Greece, where everybody's going out with the hottest chicks in the world. And we're just like there. We're just watching all of our friends go to the islands and we're just, okay, we're just going to go. And like a very difficult training camp, And a lot of athletes have done this harder than what I've ever done. But you just know that you don't need to love it, but you know that there's something out there for you to get. And that's the essence. Yeah,
totally. It's a short-term pleasure, long-term success. Choose what you want. And it's a trade-off. It is a trade-off.
Who says this? Like, it's going to depend on how much you can delay, like gratification.
Rosie.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. I mean, it's the name of the game. You know this. Everybody who's done anything to any capacity knows this.
Yeah. And it's another thing to reference. I think it's one of the episodes I've learned the most from Coach Mo again. He said, hard work is the buy-in. That's
what I meant before. Exactly. It's table stakes.
It's the buy-in. Like if you're not willing to work hard, forget about it. Like you're eliminated. I asked him like, no, but what about those athletes specifically that are just not? And he's like, they just aren't here.
They don't make it through the door.
Like they're not here. If you want to work with me, hard work is the buy-in. Like it's expected. If you're not doing that, you're not even going to be here. And this is coming from a guy that placed Olympic champion, Olympic second place, and Olympic finalist. 3 throwers in different competitions, all in the same Olympics.
No, I really like his mentality. Anybody's, I mean, in the working world, you just don't get through the door. If you want to be, same thing as you want to be in a good team, same thing you want to be in a good company, man, doing the basic stuff is just, and what else do you bring to the table? No, but I did this. No. You just did base.
Which leads, I mean, there's a great connection to that way later on. We'll connect to it later. But for now, the next one, which is something we already previously referenced, and I think it'd be good to chat about a bit, and maybe even you give me advice on this one. Whenever you're starting out, aim low. This doesn't mean not to aim up. It means having the humility to set the bar properly low to allow for small wins. Small wins will generate positive momentum, which will lead to more small wins and eventually bigger wins. For example, a good team breaks down its goal of winning a championship into winning each game they play. They break down each game into quarters and focus on the small wins in between the game. Progress is getting 1% better every day for many, many days.
I mean,
And something I've struggled with a lot is, so right now I'm managing publicly 2 podcasts, right? There's this one and there's the NIL one, which I recently started. The NIL one, it's so weird. We have done this for, it's going to be, so we're recording this on a Saturday. The next episode's coming out on Monday. It's always on a Monday. And it's going to be episode 14. 14 episodes in 14 weeks, which is honestly pretty badass.
you're close to breaking that 1% podcast with 20.
Exactly. So to be in the top 1% of any podcast in the world, you're good. To be in the top 1% of any podcast in the world, you have to make it past 21 episodes, which is unreal. But once you're doing the thing, it honestly is hard. And I think something I've struggled with is sometimes it's like, I'm going to post 2 this week and I'm going to do all these clips and I'm going to oh, I didn't end up doing anything. And what's different about this one is I'm aiming so low. And I think it's easier as well because we're co-hosts. So she helps me out with some of the scripting. I do the editing, like it's there. But I think there's 2 things. And one of them that does not piss me off, but it makes me rethink a lot about myself. To go back to how we don't appreciate our wins. Why am I showing up consistently for other people when I can't do that for myself? And mind you, this is coming from someone that's like running 100 miles on his own every single week. Like I am showing up for myself, but in the podcast, like I'm doing all these things where nobody cares. I'm totally alone. Like I do care about myself.
I have an answer.
But with the podcast, it's like, I'm going to show up for my co-host and I can't show up for myself.
Well, I think you answered this, but I'm just going to like bring it up to I'm going to just like take it from the shadows and bring it to the light. Like, why does procrastination happen? Procrastination happens to people because you make this, again, talking about the dragon, you're talking about this massive dragon. What it's like in reality is like, it's a smaller dragon and he has 6 different heads and all you need to do is slay 1 head a day. But you think you have to, you set the goal, and this is part of our our psychologist people, everybody, but especially I think athletes, you just set your goal to 100 and it is humanly possible based on what you're doing to hit 100 every day. Whereas with the other one, your goal was like literally 5 and you're hitting 10 every week. And you're like, this feels better and it's easier to do and you get more dopamine. What the heck would you? That's why this, I think this applies really well. And it's like, dude, this is not because we're here and because I'm with him, but you're doing great. It's just more about stop trying to be Joe Rogan. You'll be, but Joe Rogan was there, but he started on his couch on like a chair with like, so that's the thing. Like we want to be too much too quick and then we end up being not nothing, but you know what I mean? So I would first of all get rid of the notion that you don't show up for yourself because that's bullshit, because you do. You take care of yourself, you develop yourself. Like there's not a person I know that works on themselves so much. But when it comes to the podcast, it's become a bigger boogeyman than it needs to be. And you're by yourself. And then, when you have a partner or a co-host, you manage the expectation a little because you don't want to put all that grandiosity on to be like, okay, I need to scale this. So if you did the same thing with yourself, you'd be at a better place. But now, you set the standards here instead of just being, okay, here and next month, here and next year, here, and then we're going to get here. Which, by the way, I've done tons of times. But I just think that's like, if I can offer some advice, you just need to like realize that it's a smaller dragon that you make it look and just start, chucking at it. Because that's all it is.
One of the biggest lessons I've taken away from running is the 10% rule. Have you heard about the 10% rule?
I think you've mentioned this to me before, but I cannot recall it. So
the 10% rule in running says that you shouldn't add more than 10% of your weekly mileage to your next week's mileage. So if you were running, let's say 30 miles a week, don't go up above like the 33 miles, right? You don't want to add more than that 10%. The interesting thing is you still keep going though. So like the very first time I started running, I was running 3 miles a day. That was it. And the next week, 3.3. And then 3.6, 3.9, And you think that's so slow. One of my friends, I recommended him to do this. And he was like, it's so slow. I'm trying to get to like what you're doing, the 15 miles. Like I want to do that. And I told him, brother, that's how I started. And once you hit like the 2-month mark, it'll be 7 miles, and then 8 the next week, and then 11. And it just keeps on stacking exponentially. And in 1 year, this came up recently, I could not finish a 5K a year ago. And now it's 10%. Like
20K a day.
20 miles a day. It was 16 miles and then 20 miles this morning.
Better. So to add to my previous point, it's not that you also like make it this big thing that's unslayable. You also are impatient. Like we're trying to slay the biggest dragon with a stick when you have to like slay the baby dragon, then you have to like get a 2-headed dragon. Like, sorry for my analogy, but it works well with the dragon. But that's the point. If somebody starts, the only topic of my life, which I've done this really well, it's been lifting because I come from a country where we don't lift very heavy. Like lifting has been, I was always been scared of like fucking up a disc or like, so with squats and deadlifts and stuff, I built a lot of strength, but I did it so slow. But I was never was ashamed to lift. Like I just started doing like deadlifts with, I think like, 50 pounds in the bar for like a guy my size. It was kind of funny to see it, but it doesn't matter. But that's the only thing it's so curious to me because I never, ever, ever was like impatient. I'm like, I'm going to get to my 315 bench. I'm going to get to my 400 of deadlift, but I'll get there in like 7 months. And I did. And I never pushed myself. And I'm like, I wish I could be more. But the things again, we get inspired. We get, maybe I don't care that much about lifting that heavy. That's why I can be a little more calm. So that's the problem. Kind of maybe detachment is the answer, I guess, what we're getting to. Because when you detach, you stop being impatient and you truly evaluate it for what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Maybe it's not about winning today. It's about winning a month from now. Or would you rather win one day or win for the next 4 weeks in a row? So what do I mean? The week of the most recent Cameron and Coach Mo episode, I released those 2 in the span of 3 days. Grinded, came out. And after that, it took me a while to post again. Actually, no, since then I haven't posted. And so that's what it shows you. Like I won for 3 days, but then I lost. And I think the debate there is intensity versus consistency.
But also like, I think that, sorry to give you this feedback, but I think you forgot to plan. You forgot to plan to say, okay, do I do this now or do I keep them on my quiver to have more arrows as I go? Because that's something I learned with LinkedIn posts. Stuck them up and then have them, schedule go out and then prepare them. I think that you got too excited. You're like, this is it. It's going to be up, but it's not going to be that way. So that's the thing is like controlling, like we're good at controlling the lows because we shoot up quickly, but we should be better at controlling the highs. Because again, you're not just a full-time podcaster, you do other stuff. I'm not a full-time jiu-jitsu practitioner. I'm not a full-time whatever. So I think that that's the really good thing. Because I have the same thing, like I'll do like 3 weeks straight of like double day jiu-jitsu and stuff. And then my neck will be just, so I can train for 5 days. Whereas if I taken 2 days off during those 3 weeks or 4 days off, it would be much better. So to your example, I think that you have to prepare. So you have to plan to prepare, but you also fail to plan like that part as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, there's no reason to say sorry. Like that's the truth.
Just trying to sit here and pretend that I know everything, but that's what would be my observation.
Well, it's not that you know everything. I think an interesting topic that I've talked about before, it's one of my favorite lessons this year, Solomon's paradox.
Yeah.
Humans suck at taking their own advice, but they're great at giving other people advice.
That's honestly part of why I write. It helps me take my own advice. And journaling. Writing, posting and journaling has helped me take my own advice.
So the only way to solve Solomon's paradox is through talking to yourself by zooming out. So you're giving advice to somebody else through your own journaling. And it's like, oh, that's what I needed to say to myself. Or you sit down and you're having a conversation with someone. You should do this and this and this and this. Wow, you're a genius. And it's like, no, that's actually just in the back of my mind what I wanted to tell myself.
Exactly.
There's by teaching, we learn.
And if you don't know how to teach something, you don't know it well enough. Or you learn it better as you teach it, actually.
Yeah, that's the phrase. Yeah. I'm forgetting the Latin phrase off the top of my head, but it's literally by teaching we learn. And that's my favorite thing about like the Spanish monologues, because that's the phrase I use in the bio. The only reason I'm saying all of this is because I'm translating from English to Spanish and then I'm just explaining it and I learn it better.
Agreed.
That's the solution to Solomon's paradox. But next one. And this one is...
you know that Mosey does that, right?
What?
Alex Hormozi has a journal where he talks to his older self and he calls his older self Solomon.
No way.
It's amazing.
I didn't know he called it Solomon. I've heard about like him giving advice to his current self as if he were the 80-year-old self.
So he calls him Solomon. He has a Google Docs where he calls him like, it's amazing.
That's hilarious. I didn't know he called it Solomon, but I mean, Solomon's paradox is a psychological thing, comes from the Bible, like all these things, because you know the biblical story behind it. King Solomon was like a dumbass to giving his self, like taking his own advice, but then was a genius when giving other people advice. Yeah. So that's where it comes from. Oh shit. I don't know what happened.
No way.
The next one's a bit personal, I think, to the both of us.
Oof.
Being a leader is not about the title. Being a leader is about the behavior. You want to act the part before you get the role. Coaches typically know which junior is going to be the captain once they become a senior. The reason? That individual has been acting as a leader and captain before he or she got the title. The best leaders are servants, and they do that way before they even get recognized. For them, it's about the people, the team, and the mission. They would still do it regardless of the title.
So in there's the best advice I've gotten in my life professionally, which is act for the role you want before you get it. Which I thought this only applied when you want to be a captain, but like it applies for work. If you want to be a manager, act like a manager before you become a manager.
Is that fake it till you make it?
No.
What's the difference?
Fake it, you don't have it. Like doing the work despite the title, it actually is doing the work under worse circumstances. So if you're a manager, you're doing the work without getting the recognition, without getting the title, without getting the visibility, but you're still doing the work. So I think that you show, and because you do it without the title, you show that you want this for what it is and not for the title. Does that make sense? Because like if I was like, when I become a captain, I'll do this. No, brother, you have to show that you're worth to be a captain, and you show by actions, and actions speak louder than words. So when you do this, then you can ask or be given such title.
Got it. So it's not about I know what you're saying. I'm going to do this once I become a manager. No, it's you do this and therefore you become the manager.
Exactly. And you become a manager in energy before you become a manager or a captain in title.
Interesting.
Why? I think it makes sense.
No, it does. I just hadn't thought about it that way when you wrote it.
Like people think that it's like, oh, like I'm going to become a captain. And that's why I think one of the worst ideas, I'm going to make somebody a captain so they step up. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot.
What did you learn from your experience on the team before being the captain yourself?
So that's the second part, which is the servant leadership part, which is you might be doing the work to become a manager and you might get passed for the title or a captain or whatever. And that's where you have to know that, again, know your why. I'm doing this to become a better leader, title or not. I'm doing this for my team. I'm not doing this for myself. Because if you're doing it for a title, if you're doing the work for the title, you're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for the team. A good leader says, I'm going to be a leader no matter whether I get called captain, whether I get to lift a trophy or somebody else does. I do this for my team. That's what a servant does. It puts everything above them and it serves them. That's what you have to do to be a good leader. Because if you're not a servant, you can't give criticism. If you want to criticize people, they have to know that you have their back. And the only way to show them that you have your back is protect them and serve them. As a leader, I think as a manager, I haven't been that yet, but I'm pretty sure that applies to as what I'm seeing from my earlier years, because I was like a team lead in my past company. So that applies. You just have to show, you have to show you're willing to do the work. So to the outsiders, be like, I don't care about the title. I'm doing this for the team. You have to mean it. Don't fake it. Secondly, to your people, you have to be a servant. You have to be the guy who, this sounds cliche, but it's true. You have to clean up the shed. You have to be willing to get down and dirty.
Yeah, it's kind of hard sometimes because in the moment you want the sexy title, the sexy position. In soccer, there's the armband. So there's all these metaphors. It looks good. It stands out. But then is that really leadership? And I think the best way to show that is, are the people following? That's the only way to do it. Like, are people listening when you talk? And are people following when you walk? That's the only good way to measure it. And again, to go back to the validation thing, because I've been obsessed with this. Da Vinci never found out what his work meant. He never found out. And I think about this often because personally, the way it worked out, I was the captain of every single team I played on up until Cal. Every single team. Then I get to Cal, and sometimes I wore the armband, but I was never the captain. Like it was once we made some subs and there weren't many guys left, and there was me. But there was leadership there. Like people knew I was a leader on the team, but I was never the captain. But if people needed something, they'd come and all these things. And eventually, once I graduate, it's the alumni thing that I've told you about, which is, oh, actually, like for the alumni board, we want you on it. And you're the youngest guy by a decade on there. And I'm only saying this because it's the biggest leadership lesson I've learned, which is you don't need the armband to be the leader, nor to be recognized. But even if you don't get recognized, that doesn't mean you're not doing the work. And to me, that was the biggest thing, because usually there was applause and there was the armband and there was the bravo. But here, no validation required when you have the why ahead in the long run. Maybe not while you're on the team, but in the long run afterwards, alumni, oh, by the way, like we noticed.
Yeah, and as you said, it might come months later. But also you have to reframe what leadership is. I think that if you get into that framework, which you have and I have, of the servant leader, man, the biggest thing was that I got to talk to my younger teammates when I was a senior. They would come to me with their problems. But like grab coffee on a Sunday and we just talk about their girlfriends, school. That's like helping somebody out is the true beauty of it.
And it's a natural thing, don't you think? Like it's something I want to do. It's not something I don't want the recognition. I genuinely want to sit down with someone and say, this is the advice I would have wanted. I'm trying to be the leader I once needed. That's it. Like I'm not trying to do anything else. I genuinely want to help. And I can't tell you why. But it's not about the attention or the speech or the applause. It's literally those coffee chats where you sit down with someone and it's like, this is what I would have wanted to know. This is the advice I needed back then.
Not to take us on a tangent, but that probably has to do with our relationship with our fathers. Because you and I both have like mentors and role models in our fathers that helped us and showed us the way. So that's probably where that comes from.
Do you think people could have it regardless of that though?
Explain.
So what if somebody never had that in their father? Could they use that mindset of, I wish somebody had told me this?
100%. And like, I think that also part of the reason that we're doing what we're doing is, even though we had great guidance when we were younger, some guidance we didn't receive. So there's always to be improved. I just think that this goes to your point where you said, oh, like, I don't know why I have this calling. It's probably because that's what you saw. I'm not saying that people that didn't see it cannot do it. For the love of God, of course you can. And it's what changes the world, actually. But yeah, I think that's why you and I have this.
To go back to another one that we've already talked about, but I think there's more to talk on. Oftentimes we delay working on a project because of how big the mountain looks. I fall for it all the time. Can't tell you how many times I've gotten paralysis by analysis of things at work and personal life. My best remedy has been breaking said task into smaller, doable, tiny bits. Getting fit, finishing a project, starting a business idea. Once you remind yourself that you don't need to kill the beast with one cut, it becomes much easier. The solution is death by 1,000 cuts. Divide the objective into smaller tasks and execute them. Go to the gym tomorrow, then go again, and then the next day, which I add to that another one of your posts, which says, staying fit or active with a demanding job is about getting the job done. Sometimes that's a quick session at home. Sometimes it's a long walk to unwind. Perfectionism is the enemy of progress. Just do something good for your health today. Start small, aim small, miss small. How does this one vary to the other ones in my question? That would be, what does that actually look like? How do you actually plan out? Like, take me through your process of, this is the big monster, the big mountain, the big goal. Take me through what advice, we're having coffee on a Sunday. I'm your younger teammate. Nikos, I want to do this big mountain, this big goal, this big dragon. How would I have to slay it bit by bit?
First of all, dream big. Make the dragon bigger. Make the goal bigger. I want to ensure that. Like, I'm not the person who says be realistic with your goals, but be realistic with your processes. I think that's a good distinction to make. I'll be, you want to be a whatever, CEO, fitness model, whatever you want to be. Dream. Journal about the dream. So I think you're making me think, but I think the distinction I make is I have journals about besides my feelings and stuff, I journal about my dreams, my goals, my plans, 3, 5, 7, 15 years. But then the tactical stuff is different. You got to make a very big distinction. I think people either get lost on the day-to-day and they don't dream big, or they dream big and they never start. I think that the big distinction is, okay, I think Jocko talks about this and he says there's like strategy and there's tactics. So the strategy is like, where are we going? We're going to conquer this. We're going to do this. But the tactics are very different. And literally my material is different. Like you'll see my journal. My journal will have big picture. Then I'm going to go into a period of training. Like right now I am prepping for Jiu-Jitsu World Championships in January. And I know that my priority was Jiu-Jitsu. So I need to structure my day around it and how I can get my workouts and my lifts and everything. But in the spring, my objective was play Water Polo Masters, be at a really good level. So my fitness was different. My fitness training was different. Why I'm saying this is because you understand the big goal. Then you got to have a rough outline of what your day-to-day looks like, what your weeks look like. And then you got to get every day-to-day. Like I go from journal to post-it. Because I need to make those to create momentum, I need to make things that I can check off. Because if I have to check off, get a six-pack, and it's going to take me 7 months, so good luck. But if I have to do the workout, you can check it every day. And the dopamine you're going to get is going to allow you to do.
But what's the actual process look like of, like, could you give me an example of, all right, this is the big goal. This is the Jiu-Jitsu World Champs. Every single day, how do you break it down? Is it as simple as just show up to the gym?
Yeah, but okay, because also like I depend on my professors a lot for that. So I think that might not be the best example, but yeah, it's just okay. You have a rough idea of where you want to be when the European Championships come across in January. What do I need to do? By October, I need to be able to do these moves. Then I have to have this fitness. What am I going to do for my strength? So I have that's the rough 5 to 6 month plan. And then on the day-to-day, you just say, okay, I'm going to start with this gym program and this training program. And as I go through it, I realize, okay, I need to lift 3 times and I need to do 6 times. How do I spread that out? When do I do my recovery? Do I train every day? Do I rest 2 days and do a double day? What do I do? Does that answer the question?
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So if you have, let's say, a 13-week goal, you break it down into monthly, so 4 weeks, and then from those 4 weeks, weekly. And it's like, all right, just got to do this. Because I'm thinking about this as running now.
Because it's easier to follow. Like you got to go big to small, so you don't lose why you do this, but you also got to be very specific. It's like, oh fuck, I'm just going to start. No, you're going to do 3.3, 3.6, 3.7. So you got to go big to small. You don't go small to big until however much. You get the idea, you write about it, you fantasize, and you're like, okay, let's get realistic now. How do we get there?
Interesting. Okay, so the fantasizing part is the motivator.
It's your why. You lifting that trophy, you finishing that marathon, me winning European Champions in Jiu-Jitsu, which I don't know if I'm going to do because I've only been training for 6 months, but do I fantasize for that? Hell yeah.
Difference between that and mental masturbation?
But you don't do the thing. Mental masturbation is like, I'm going to do this. Where is it? If you tell me where is it, bro, look at my sparring on May and July and now. Like now I'm progressing, I'm submitting people and that stuff. So that's the difference. Mental masturbation is the dreaming, and doing the thing is like, okay, I dream because it's necessary, but how do I get there?
This next one is one of my favorite as well. And it's just so simple, but so true. Get the easy stuff right. You'd be surprised by how many people don't. Be polite, be on time, follow up, give thanks. These things sound so simple, but will distinguish you from so many others. Don't do it for others. Do it for yourself first. If you work hard on something and you don't get the result you deserve because you got there late, or you said the wrong thing, or you weren't polite, it's a shame for all the work you already put in. Imagine studying hard for a test and then being late to class and not being able to take it. Sweat the small stuff. How do you do anything is how you do everything.
I mean, we switched a little bit from personal development to, I guess this is part of personal development. This was more like geared to networking.
There's a follow-up on the networking side as well, which says, here's some simple networking advice. You can stand out by showing up early, preparing the night before, remembering some details about the person you were speaking to, following up quickly, following up multiple times. It's not about the fancy stuff. You'd be surprised at how many people miss the basics.
Yeah, I think that people also use it as an excuse because they're lazy. Dude, this might come off the wrong way, but I don't really care. I lapped so many kids networking at Cal. I did not speak the language. I did not know what networking was. I come from a culture where you're not supposed to talk about your good things, so I didn't know how to sell myself. And I lapped so many kids just because of those things. And if I have to add to something is seek out mentors. And I'm sure I've posted about this, but you have to seek out mentors and then you have to be extremely respectful for people. Like I think that one of the values that I'm extremely grateful that my father has taught me is to do the things, be a gentleman. Being a gentleman is also about opening the door for the girl, but it is about that. But as a man, and carrying yourself as a proper man and being a good reflection of yourself and your family, if you think you're representing people, you have to like, you know, the reason I was able to like do things and like get a job and everything, and a lot of people were going home is because I just did the small stuff. I called people, was always very polite. You have to understand that nobody owes you anything. I think that that's a big purpose when we talk about this. Like people aren't that, nobody owes you anything. When I realized that, because I realized nobody owes me anything, anytime I was given, I was extremely respectful and thankful for that. And then I realized how many people don't do that. Like how many people did book networking coffee chats, they show up unprepared or they're not like put together. They don't put on like, they don't take a shower and they don't like freaking comb their hair. Like, you know, maybe people are going to get onto me because, oh, everybody needs to be themselves. I agree, but you have to be respectful to the person. So yeah, that always gains me. And going back to your point, it's like it gains you entrance to that alumni room when you're 26 and everybody else is 50. I don't want to be considered a child. So don't act like one.
23, but yes.
Yeah, I'm 26 already. Yeah.
I know.
But I'm saying I have the same experience as you and I talk about this. Like I've been in rooms with people that I wasn't supposed to and been in tables that I wasn't supposed to. And I got to sit down and learn and listen because I was respectful. So don't be a child.
Yeah, like one of my biggest lessons from this summer and recently, and I don't want to get into the specifics, but it's what we were talking about off the record before this. You never know who's watching. Like the broader context, I don't want to get into specifics, but the relationship of a possible opportunity that's coming up stemmed from me saying hello and looking someone in the eye and shaking their hand for 2 years in a row, 10 years ago. And then I've met them 2 more times throughout then. And because I was posting on social media, they followed up and that was it. I would look them in the eye, say hello and shake their hand. It like that's where it stemmed from. Otherwise, we don't know each other.
Like, I think going back, because we talked about the championship a lot, man, the way I was very careful the way I carry myself around the pool, because that's how I was raised from my family and my team back home, that, you know, you represent something. There's nothing wrong with understanding that you represent something. You need to like be respectful. And then by default, the way I respected my teammates and the way I treated everybody gave me like same thing with you, really good relation with people that saw me from the outside. So it's the biggest thing. How you do anything is how you do everything. How is somebody going to trust you or take it? You want people to take a chance on you when you're younger. How are they going to do if you cannot show up in time?
It's also funny because it's a charisma play as well. So I'll give you the example, another big lesson I learned this summer. I was running throughout the summer at a country club and I would show up early and the people would start to know me because I was showing up every single day at the same time and there weren't that many people and I was on the younger side and again, the unexpected, right? And at this country club, there's security guards like there to greet you and whatever. I would look them in the eye, shake their hand, and after a few of the first times, I asked for their name. After that, every single day, Daniel, how are you? Something came up at one point, like 1 month in, and he was like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll take care of you. Like it was like, oh, we're closing. And he's like, you're totally fine. And to me, it was like, wow, like, it's just like we're buddies. No, we're not. I just shook your hand, looked you in the eyes, called you by your name, and now I'm treated special.
And you didn't do this to get any special privilege, because that's what people think they do. No. You did it. That's what, again, I'm big on, like, you do it for yourself. That's what they posted. You do it for yourself. Because you know that at the end of the day, in everything you do, I think you want to know that you did your best. And part of doing your best is being proper. And if you're not proper to people, you fail in the first step. I maybe it's because where I come from. Maybe I'm so thankful for my parents because they were always super polite to like the, you know, anybody, no matter where they work, how much they were worth, whatever. And like that taught me, like we're living in a society where people say thank you when you look them in the eyes and you call them by the name. You say like, come on, man. So
my favorite thing though about this whole thing is a country club is a privileged bubble, right? That's what it is. Once you step out of that and you realize, oh, the people will react even better if you do that in real life. You're getting coffee with the barista, that one coffee shop you're always going to. Good morning. How are you? How was this? And then you pick up a little detail. You just write it in your phone. Next time you ask them about it. And it keeps stacking. And eventually you don't know why you're doing it. It could be just for the hello and that's it. Just be nice, being proper. Or if you ever need something, it does pay its benefits.
I'll add to that I think that's I think you like this, but that's also living life to the fullest. I have two options. Go through the coffee shop every morning and get no energy exchange. Or every time I go through the coffee shop to Strata, I went to Strata after a year, they still remember me. I was a kid that was here at 5:30 every morning. They still remember me because for me, you live life if you stop and you're present. Sorry. But you live life if you stop and you're present. That's how you live life. You don't just go through. So you live life by sweating the little things. So that's another perspective. It's not just about respect and being proper. In my opinion, it's also about being present. You fully live life when you are there and you do the thing and you spend the time to get to know the people and exchange that energy.
And just simply, doesn't it also just feel nice? Like you think you're
selfishly makes me happier.
You think you're giving to them, but realistically, you're giving to yourself. One of the best pieces of advice I've gotten around the dating space is never take a girl on a date that you don't want to go to. Okay. So
how does that relate? Walk me through it.
Okay. You take this girl out to this restaurant because you like the restaurant. You go to this activity, you plan this whole thing out because you like that activity. Obviously, you got to be mindful of the other person as well, but you're doing it for you. You're doing it because it makes you happy, and tagging this person along will make you happier, but you're already going to be happy. Same thing here. I'm not thinking about the benefits of maybe they'll give me a free coffee someday. Maybe it'll be all this. No, I'm doing this because that's what makes me happy. That's what makes me feel good. And even if it doesn't pay off for anything in the long run, if this girl doesn't become my girlfriend, future wife, or if this barista, I never see them again, regardless, you're happy because you did it for yourself.
Agreed.
Next one. This is a big one. I think as guys, we struggle with being vulnerable because of the labels that we attach to it. Being vulnerable doesn't mean giving up on something because it's hard. It's about admitting that we are not Superman as much as we want the world to see us as such, and then going and doing the thing regardless. Doing the thing after admitting that it's hard or that your struggles, that you struggle doesn't make you weak or less cool. It makes you more human and more relatable. As a result, you might be able to positively affect and inspire others. Think about your favorite athletes. Person A builds this perfect picture and only talks about their achievements. Person B is about how much it sucked becoming the person they needed to become. In the end, both won the same championship. But who do you like more? Who do you relate to more? Who inspired you more?
I think this ties to a lot of the stuff we talked about, obviously. Number one, it ties back to the whole thing we said before, like, our phone call when somebody's not feeling good, all that stuff. More importantly, and where this post comes from is from a notion that I had to be perfect all the time. Want to call it toxic masculinity, want to call it whatever. But I thought that, if people saw chinks in my armor, they wouldn't trust me to lead them. But it's quite the opposite. Because to lead somebody, you need to be relatable. Because otherwise, if I call you to do something and I don't show you that I've done it, it doesn't give me credibility as a leader. So in a sense, being vulnerable and treading lightly on this because this is a sensitive topic, but I think that there's the being soft and like not doing it, or just being open and saying, I did it besides the fact. I did it besides the fact and besides the feelings that I had, gives people who are in that dark pit a sense of hope. And when you give them a sense of hope, you become their leader. Like, I thought I had to be this invincible guy and never show whatever. But I found that, like, by showing my emotions to my teammates, at times, when it was sometimes not justifiable, but sometimes, like, showing your vulnerability, you become relatable. Like, huh. So I think that it's huge learning. Guys don't understand this. We want to seem like this. And because between guys, we're not good at being vulnerable, but bringing it back. Once you show them, you need to show relatability to lead somebody. Otherwise, they think like, yeah, dude, that's cool, but you don't know. But if you actually show them that you know how they feel and you've been there, and yet you came out of it, that's when you become leader. Because this means in their mind that you know the path. So otherwise, getting through the woods, but somebody got through when there was no woods and it was clear, it's not relatable. But somebody thought, yeah, I was here like last year and we did this and it worked. You'd be like, oh, this guy gets it. So that's why this came from.
Don't you think, though, I think the interesting thing there is maybe being a leader just means understanding.
For sure. But I think that you can if you just understand what they say, but you don't share your vulnerability, you're missing a level of connection.
Which is that understanding of, I know what you've been through. I know what you mean.
So how do you show me that? Exactly. But how do you show me that you understand? By telling you vulnerably that I've been through the same.
Interesting.
Like you build that connection.
What was the biggest struggle for you to get over that, or what made you get past that obstacle of opening up?
It's like removing outside pressure. Like, I just told myself, like, dude, you're doing better than most people out there, that you're afraid that might criticize you. You need to grow up and just only seek for approval from the people that love you. And quite frankly, the people that love you know that you've overcome so much. And everybody has to go through their own thing. And actually, shift them. I think that the last thing that, kind of took down that fake house of cards that I had was like, oh, like, you need to be like untouchable and stuff, was that nobody wants the hero that like goes through it untouched. They want Hercules was going through his 12, whatever you call it in English, the challenges or whatever. You want somebody who went through it, because when somebody has to do this, so I realized that my experiences and my ability to share my vulnerability is what makes me unique and makes me relatable, because you want to be relatable if you want to be a leader. So once I made that mental switch, I'm like, oh, this is not a weakness, this is a superpower. That was huge.
It was a reframe.
Literally. Like, my life didn't change. Me reframing the way I saw my life and understanding how people are going to look at it give me it's about taking all the power back. People didn't have the power no longer because I didn't care about whether they would thought I'm invincible. I'll be like, hey, like, this is me. If you guys relate and you want to rock with me and want to go win a championship, cool. If I'm not your guy, I'm not your leader. Took all that power to me. Very simple. And by the way, shit happens and like still happens where like I put the power out there and like I rely too much on external validation. But at the end of the day, I've learned to be like, hey, you're good. It's part of the journey. The hero wanders, the hero stumbles, the hero returns. As one of my favorite quotes says, it's part of the hero's journey. And talking about the bad parts, which is something that people don't do, is what inspires other people to start. The reason David Goggins so relatable was because he was so overweight. He missed it. He went back. He broke all that stuff. People don't relate. Like, people relate with Tom Brady because he won 7 rings after being drafted fucking 199th, not because, or whatever his name was, but his number was, not because he was the star. How was that? I had to claw through like all of my stuff, and I thought that made me less. That actually made me better. For a lot of reasons, but it made me better later because I understood where everybody's coming from, and I could tell them I've been there. So yeah, just a reframe.
This is a reminder to keep doing you. The people who love you will support you. More importantly, the only person that matters in the end is future you, who will thank you and be proud of you.
Huge thing that I've done over the last year is stop relating on what people care. It took me 25 years. So I don't know. Some people never do it. Some people do it young, but care too much, try to please too many people. And I just try not to do that anymore. Because as athletes, you kind of develop that relationship with your coaches and stuff. I think it's natural. Most athletes, there's somebody always that can, because they determine basically if you play. So I think like subconsciously to a certain percentage, it does create that relationship with anybody. So I think that I just thought that with everybody need to be liked, and no. And that also was why I just been so happy this past year, because I just focus on what I want to do. I'm like, dude, I don't want to go out. I want to go train jiu-jitsu tomorrow. But we got to go. I'm like, I'm not interested. And that's okay. Just like, I don't have it there, but like, I love that quote by Chris, which is like, find the others. So you just got to learn to say no and find the others. And then you go from feeling like an alien to not only just being happy about your day, but also finding people like you that we share the same interests. So just be you. Like, wake up the next morning, you want to work out, people want to go to happy hour, they don't want to, fuck them.
How do you explain that though?
You don't have to. That's the whole point. That's what I realized. That was what my mom's biggest feedback. She's like, I love you and I love when you talk about life, but I'm going to give you one advice. And she said that to me like 2 years ago when I was 24. It's like, you're still trying to explain too much of your life. And she like looked at me and she's always very nice with me. She's like, you don't have to explain to these bums anywhere, anything. You are you. Nobody understands you. That's okay.
But what about those friends in the realistic situation? Why do you work so hard? Why do you work out so much? Why do you try to do all this personal development stuff? What do you say then?
Because I'm better than you. No, I'm kidding.
No, I mean, realistically though, like you're in that situation and you're getting this text and it's Nico's come out, it's a Friday. Nico's come out, it's a Saturday. Relax a little bit. You're pushing yourself too hard. You're doing all this, that. That's like, do you not care about us? Do you think you're better than us? Like, what happens there?
So I'm fortunate enough not to have anybody tell me you think you're better than us, because I think I'd laugh at somebody. Because if somebody says that, they just put themselves underneath you, so they have zero confidence in themselves.
Realistically, it's somebody you want to cut out then.
Exactly. So I'm not even going to talk about them because I don't have those people. But repeat what you said before.
I mean, what do you do then? Hey, Nico's like, you need to relax a little bit. You should hang out with us a little bit more. Like, I want to catch up with you. Like, let's go out tonight. Let's get this dinner. Let's stay up chatting. You can take your workout off tomorrow. I'm sure you can take a break from work.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of people that are doing this, because I think I'm a couple waves after that, where I've gone through that, where I'm just, my people get it, that I'm kind of I'm that friend. Like, first of all, add some humor to your life and learn to joke about you. I haven't written about this, but it's been phenomenal. It's be like, oh, Nico's that psychopath who wakes up at 5 a.m. and goes to work. So I'm like, haha, yeah. Now, real, dude, whatever works for you. If you're feeling bad, you can tell them to fuck off. I don't respond. I'm just like, hey, like, I just let these things fly over my head nowadays. Just like, oh, you don't need to do this. I'm like, huh. The reality is that a lot of my friends, I'm like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't want your life. I'm not going to tell them, because I respect people's feelings and people are going through stuff. But like, in my head, you just have to have your internal dialogue is what I'm trying to say. In my head is like, dude, I wouldn't want your life. I wouldn't want your life. I wouldn't want your body. I wouldn't want your mental state. So that's why I'm doing this. So I have my why. Going back to our conversation, I have my why. You can tell me whatever. That was the biggest thing. But I learned to be like, okay, people don't agree with me. And I don't want the life most people have. And I say this like, I know this is very like, wow, from like 26-year-old. So like, I don't want the life most people have. Hence, I'm probably not going to do the same things they do. And that's okay. And I think that like, the more people say this, the more okay is going to happen. Well, we're trying to fit in. Why you've seen where that leads. Do you want to go down that path? No. So by default, you're going to have to do something else. The thing is that when somebody like me says this, when I'm 26 and I haven't accomplished very much, they're like, oh, you think you're so... No, I don't. But I'm going to try and give it my best. I don't know. Maybe I landed the same shit and I'm also more tired and I've given up more things. Boo-hoo. But I'm okay with that. Because at the end of the day, when I go to bed, I'm happy. I don't know. I want a little bit of attention. Does that make sense?
Totally. I think also like when you're looking at storytelling as somebody that studies storytelling and how it works, you need a beginning, a middle, and an end. So to go back to your previous point, you don't want to just jump to the end where it's happily ever after. You want the beginning and then you want the struggle. And then that's when the story matters. And I think it's that middle ground of saying no to people. Like, to me, it's been wild how true this is of the friends that have just, it wasn't I cut them out. It wasn't they cut me out. It just happened. And it was little things of, we would trust each other so much. We would share everything. And then they stopped sharing things with me because they knew I would just give them the same advice I've given them over and over and over again before. And it's just like, I know they feel uncomfortable. I know I just would not feel comfortable either. So we just avoid each other. And it's not as sad as it seems, I think, because I don't necessarily agree with the whole, you know what, like, I think the whole find the others is better than the, oh, lonely, I don't want to hang out with you. Like all these things. No, you just find the others and you find people that are on the same path. And by the way, I think either path is totally cool. You do you. And whatever path you choose, you will find like-minded people. Birds of a feather flock together, right? I think it's just put yourself out there and it'll lead you right down the right path, I guess, with people. Like socially, it's
Okay.
It's weird. Like it's weird for me to think about some of these people that it's like so important in my life for 10 years, 15 years.
This might be a cultural thing.
Okay.
Or this might be because I had to leave basically all of my friends at 19. And I've had this notion since I'm like, there's a few notions that I've had since I'm young and that haven't changed. But this is like paramount. I think you don't have a lot of friends. You're not supposed to have a lot of friends. We are social creatures that used to grow up in very small villages. And all of a sudden we have virtually everybody on the first world on our phone. Our friend groups also, they're not supposed to be this big. Like guys we had, I'm taking guys because I'm a guy. Guys we had, the guys who were in the same, I mean, up until 300-400 years ago, we had the guys that were in the same platoon with us because everybody was in some sort of an army before the Renaissance and everything. And then the guys in the village and our family. And that's it. But we didn't have a lot of friends. So I have always known, because I've always known that I'm not going to have a lot of friends around. And my personal belief is that that's why I'm really careful about who I'm going to pick, who I'm going to spend my life with, because that's going to be my friend. I've just been okay with just like people and I not aligning. And I never held grudges, which is really nice because I get to reconnect with people who haven't spoken in a year and a half. And some people I don't have all that bullshit. And if you don't put that pressure, the other person doesn't put that pressure. So there's no expectations to maintain contact. You grab lunch every 2 years, or you get on I have really good friends from Greece who we've gotten in like 5 phone calls in the last 7 years that I've been in the US. And that's okay. People put all these expectations with their friendships and it's like, dude, relax. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because what's going to happen even if you hold those friends groups, everybody's going to get married, everybody's going to have a family, they're going to get too busy, their children becomes their everything, as they should, and they're just going to have to spend all the time. So sooner rather than later, you're going to split up. So I just know that I build up friendships that don't rely on there we go. I know that my friendships are not reliant on like the day-to-day interactions, they're built on something deeper. Religion, values, families, experiences, hardships, or something along those lines. So it doesn't matter. And we can be friends, but our day-to-day, but like our values might be the same, but our day-to-day might be different. Our political aspiration might be different. But when everything gets stripped down and shit hits the fan, I know we can still call each other. That's what's important. So yeah, that's like, I guess the core of it. Like I know that I'm not expecting to keep contact with a lot of friends and I'm okay with that. That's why I'm like, hey, our values don't align. We work out for 6 months together. Then you choose a different path. That's fine. I'm not going to be mad about it. I'll see you around.
It is what it is then.
Yeah, man. Like life happens. The more you like trying to put shoulds and coulds and woulds is like more difficult.
One of the last ones kind of to start wrapping up here.
Kind of.
The only way to get as close to perfection as possible is trying 1,000 times. You should not be discouraged if you suck at first. No matter what that is, your interview skills, your pitch, your workout schedule, diet, etc. You need to put in a lot of work and iterations till you find what works and what you flow through in a routine. It took me years to become comfortable in a schedule where I work out daily and work 10 plus hours a day, and I'm still iterating. Brute force and repetition have built better routines and more top people than perfection. There is no golden pill, no optimization. You are missing the point of the journey. Hitting the perfect routine right away robs you of the experience that is experimenting everything. You need the failed attempts in order to find out what works and to keep improving. Be process-oriented, not results-oriented.
Yeah, be input-oriented, be whatever. I think you and I talk about this a lot, that it's about the journey. And people say this, but I don't think they analyze it. The journey is the suck. The journey is sucking 85% of the time. I just think people romanticize it, but they don't understand it. But if you switch I think that I steal a lot of things. Or like, I think Alex Hormozi helped me put into words a lot of the things that I was thinking about. And I always realized is that I knew that as long as I went to practice and I give it my all, that's all I could do from a very young age. And I think that put that framework through sales. That's why I've loved jiu-jitsu. Besides the fact that I'm obsessed with it as an art, I think that also the sheer fact that I suck so much at it and there's no shortcut to a black belt is what amazes me. So I think that you literally have to marry this idea that there's no, like, having a golden hack is being lazy. Everybody wants to build a business and make $3 million a year and retire in Bali, but nobody wants to like do the 7 years it's going to take you from. Everybody wants to be, I don't know, everybody thinks they're entitled to like playing it because they trained for a week. That drove me off that back in my team. That drove me. Like somebody has like a week of consistent practice or 2 or a month after beating around the bush for 4 years and they think they need to be like a significant minutes. Sit down. What about everybody else? So like there's a lot of notions here, but you have to just understand that the journey, to truly love the journey, you have to understand that's going to suck most of the time and most things are not going to work or they're going to take a lot of friction. Once you do that, you're like, okay, again, shift your mentality around there, like the perspective, like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be inefficient and that's okay.
I think that's also interesting of like, I've been doing the work well for a month. Why don't I get the playing time?
Who told you that it takes a month? Right? Like who told you? Where is it written? Even if the same person that did the same work as you for a month got to play, the fuck do you know about what they did? And maybe they're luckier. Life is unlucky. Welcome. So, like that's the thing. You're still outputs oriented. Why don't you just say, okay, I did the work. Again, it goes back to like doing a lot of things. You have to be okay with yourself. Like the notion of I did everything I could in a day so I can sleep well at night. A, because I'm tired, but B, because I'm mentally okay with myself. It's fantastic. It's like I couldn't. I want to be the best salesperson, but it's going to take me 7 months, 9 months, a year and a half. Because like you're trying to close a gap and like people forget. There's other people that are ahead of you already. So people think that, oh, when I'm doing the same, no, you're maintaining the gap. Like
that's the thing about the player that wants to play in time. Oh, coach, I've done so well for a month. I've done better than the starter for a month. And it's like, yeah, but they've done better the past 2 years than you.
How convenient.
Yeah. I think, so I'm currently reading the Steve Jobs biography by
like
Walter Isaacson. So good.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fascinating. I've always been fascinated by Steve, but I think the book is just it's funny. It's interesting just to see how he was as a child and growing up. But there's this one chapter and he was ridiculously young when everything happened, like ridiculously young. And there's one chapter when they're building the Mac and he's only like 27 or 28. And the chapter of the title is called The Journey is the Reward. And I think about this so often because I think like I call this thing the happiness circle, which is you don't do a means for an end. You just do like the means is its own end.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when the process becomes the reward. When you're just so in love with the process and that's what makes you happy, you keep on doing it over and over and over again. And then as a result, you get better. And as a result of getting better, the consequence is you get some result. You get something in return. You get the recognition, whatever it may be. But you don't do it for that. You do it because you love the inputs. And I think about this often now because it's the inputs are in your control, the outputs are not. And it doesn't fucking matter. Like to go back to Steve Jobs, he was under the impression that he was going to be Time's Person of the Year and he wasn't. And he looks back and it's like, well, does that fucking matter anyways? Like it doesn't take away from the fact that I did what I wanted to do, that I was happy doing the thing that I wanted to do. And that's all that matters.
I think to summarize that, you have to live a life and you have to try to design your life that at the end of the day, I love this, when hell comes to breakfast, if hell does come for breakfast, you can say like, it doesn't matter, I did everything I could and how I wanted to. I think me not getting my visa and have to go back home put a lot of things that were brewing in my mind into perspective real quick. Because it just kicked off a gear in my head, which I asked myself a lot of times, which was, hey, you're probably going to have to leave the US, statistically speaking, 90% probability you're going to have to leave the US in a year and a half. What do you need to do so that living the US in that plane, you don't have any regrets? That to me has been a phenomenal. And I think it's been really nice because those type of thoughts typically kicking when somebody dies, knock on wood. So I was very lucky. It was a memento mori type of moment, but at the same time, it wasn't very great. So I'm very thankful for that. But it really gave me that because it was like, if I'm Steve Jobs, do I become the Times Magazine Person of the Year? No. Would I have done anything differently? No. So that's the point. And I think that brings me something I talked to the guys today about the team. When I talked to the Cal Water Polo team, and I said, like, when we we're about to board the bus to go to the final. Everybody's lined up for the bus. I'm getting chills because it's one of my favorite moments. And I stole this from my coach in the national team, but everybody's lined up, headphones, everybody's in their own different world. And I stop and I remember this. I was like, this is it. Like, there's nothing else to be done. So I put down my stuff, take off my headphones, and I go and like shake everybody, saying, I look them in the eyes, and European, like I give them a kiss on the cheek, and I'm like, thank you. And like we talked about this, I'm like, why? I'm like, because like we did what we could do. That's what life is. You just want to get to the final. Then the final, it's a game. Anybody can win on a Sunday. But the whole thing was like, you have to be able to, like, walking away from something, you have to know that you gave it your all. If that's a day or that's something you wanted to try. Because then the output doesn't really matter because you couldn't have done anything else.
I think one of the biggest regrets of my life is when I look back at something, it's like I could have done more. Mm-hmm. I was talking about this. There was an athlete here at Cal that gave me a call. She was going through some struggles and we had a phone call before a competition. And I reminded her of this. I think one of the biggest regrets I have in my life is me thinking back to my last high school game ever, where I, for a split second, gave up on the play and just didn't react for 5 seconds. And I just watched them run. And it wasn't until 5 seconds later that I decided to start chasing down for defense. And it didn't end up making a difference. Had I run 5 seconds earlier, could I have gone in there? Maybe yes, maybe no. But I regret those 5 seconds of just standing there and being like, oh, it's over. Because I think what could have been. And I think that's the key. Like, the best days of my life are when I look back and it's like I could have done nothing more. But then the worst moments, the ones I regret, it's like what could have been.
So your best moments are the moments where you lived life to the fullest.
Not the ones where I got the applause, I got the reward. No. When I just laid in bed and was like, damn.
Good day.
I did that and then I get to do it all again tomorrow.
Good day. That's my favorite thing. Be like exhausted and just lay down. Be like, good day.
Well, you talk about this as well. It's like reframing everything. And I think there is a memento mori of maybe I'll get rejected on this cold call, or maybe my sale won't convert, or maybe I'll ask the girl out and I just won't get the number. Like, none of this will work. And what am I going to do when I go back to Greece and I have to explain it to my friends? Oh, I didn't do this because I was too scared.
Can you imagine saying that out loud? But we think about it every time. But can you imagine saying that out loud? How ashamed would you be? I know which post this is from. But yeah, like, can you imagine?
It'd be so sad to just explain. The way I think about it is 50 years from now, what am I gonna tell my grandkids?
Exactly.
oh, I didn't start the business because I was too scared. The fuck? They're just gonna look at me and be like, Grandpa, you're such a bitch.
Bitch is the right word, to be honest. Though, yeah, I didn't go to America because like I didn't think, oh, bro. And like, you have to do it. Like, and everything you want is on the other side of fear. Everything you want doesn't sit on the other side of like something easy. So it's gonna come some fear with that and uncertainty. And I think that once you befriend yourself with that idea, off you go, the races. Like that's the idea. Like when you befriend yourself with the fact that it's gonna suck, that's 50% of the job. Because as Hermosi says, expectation match reality. Just like, this is supposed to be this shitty. Oh, okay, so this is normal. So all this expectation, all this weight, out the window. So now I can focus on my work instead of worrying about what the fuck somebody's gonna say. I think this ties to a lot of things we talked today, and me like not worrying and do I care about what people say? Who's gonna judge me? Who was there when I was so stressed that I had to go get defibrillator and get my heart restarted when I was 19 years old? Everybody was at home doing nothing. Who's gonna judge? Nobody. Not even my parents. Which I love and I'll take their advice obviously, but nobody's gonna judge you. Nobody knows what you've gone through. You, me, people that might listen to this and might think about it, nobody knows. So for that, you take pride on that. The only type of good pride that exists is understanding what you've been through and do it for yourself. Like if somebody doesn't agree with it, okay. There's about 5 to 10 people that you have to listen to. The rest, they don't know you well enough. And as Tom Holland says, if you have a problem with me, text me. If you don't have my number, it means you're not like, you're not close enough to me to like have a problem with me. So same thing. Don't take advice from too many people. Just do your thing.
I posted about this yesterday. I personally don't know the names of my great-grandparents. Like I don't know their names.
I saw that this morning.
And the fact that I don't know their names means I don't know what they did for a living. I don't know how much money was in their bank account. I don't know whether they got cheated on, got rejected by one of their exes, started the business, didn't start the business. I know nothing about them. And some people could say, oh, that's so sad. All right, then add a few extra generations, make it 4 or 5 generations. You don't know who these people were. And the fact that your own family won't remember your name 3 generations from now is like, damn, you're really not going to do what you want to do because of some person's comments.
I mean, I'm going to be very honest. Part of the reason that I was like, I'm afraid to create is because I think people are going to make fun of me. And then I'm like, really? Like who? And then you like put the people that you're thinking about and you're like, and there's about another 7 billion of them. So like, yeah.
And they're all going to die anyways.
I mean, that's your new favorite thing to say, but yes, I agree.
No, realistically though,
Yeah.
3 generations from now, nobody's going to remember. If they do remember it, you're going to die. So you won't remember it yourself. Like, okay, so what?
I get it. Like nihilism is very helpful in that sense. It's just like, I think that taking a little bit too much, it can be too far, but I agree with that. Like shit doesn't matter anyways. So you might as well do what you want to do. Yeah.
Last one.
Okay.
Today marks 7 years since I moved to the States. Feels like yesterday when I landed in SFO at 1 a.m. with 2 suitcases and no idea what was going to follow. As my time in the US is coming to an end in a few months, I can't help but reflect and be so thankful for all the people I've met and the experiences I've lived. Leaving your home and moving to the other side of the world at 19 is not easy, but it sure is worth it.
Yeah, I don't know what you want me to say to that. It's been pretty crazy. I wasn't expecting to like tear up, but it's been pretty crazy. Like the growth, the people, the experiences. Like it's such an honor and a privilege to say that my life is better than I dreamed. I grew up, like, again, I'm a dreamer. I grew up dreaming in like, California and the beach and all that stuff. And like I saw that, I'm like driving up and down the 1 and like doing all that stuff, meeting people like you that I know that I'm going to be in contact forever. Like, I don't know. I think that's been amazing. Amazing. Just amazing. And I think that gratitude is the one thing that I learned to practice, and it's super, super nice. Life is so good, man. We're so lucky. Like I wasn't supposed to be here in this room. Wasn't supposed to come to Berkeley. I mean, just grew up in a household in Greece and, I was supposed to just do the thing and kids up, whatever. But I was very, very fortunate to do all this, and I don't take that for granted. I don't take anything for granted. It's been amazing. I don't know what else there's to say. Like people helped me, taught me things. I've learned I would never imagine becoming the man who I've become, and I have so much work to do in myself. But it's just the progress and who I am right now. I'm so, so grateful. It's been amazing.
When you look back at the top 3, 5 memories that you've had in the past 7 years, off the top of your head, and nothing too deep, but like, what would they be?
Good and bad. I mean, championship for sure. Getting my first job, like, it's a big deal coming from Europe. Like, I made it. I'm staying.
Not accomplishments though, memories.
No, like getting that offer. Like, so championship, but also like everything like on that night, getting the phone call that I got my job offer for like my number 1 choice, but also the bad things, like being in the hospital twice during my college years. Like, fuck, man. That was tough. Like having a phone call with my parents where they're asking me like, do you want to come back? And I'm just like I think I talked about this on the previous podcast, bawling my eyes out and just saying, no, I want to stay, because I knew there was more. So those memories core for me. And then I don't have those massive, I think, just driving around California and just thinking to myself, wow, this is where we're at. Hollywood sign, Malibu, all the stuff you see in the movies. It's beautiful things. And then all the little things, the people, everything. I don't have a specific memory other than that. All those little things that make a good life. Like I think people, taking this on a tangent, but I think people think that life is big memories. I think it's like all the little ones and living those little ones. I think that's what we've done so far.
That's the point I wanted to make, and not to make it too drastic, but I think like one of the things I really, really, really want to get into eventually, like I don't know when, but I would love to do it with this podcast, is I would love to talk to elderly people, or if possible, have conversations and full on interviews with people on their deathbed, I think it really, really puts things into perspective. But in an odd, weird memento mori way, like we were talking about, this is like this chapter's deathbed, if that makes sense. Like it's the end of the 7 years.
Mhm.
And the reason I asked the question about the memories is because you mentioned 2 big moments out of 7 years, and the rest was just like living. And that's the big thing to me. Like I think when I get to the end of my life, hopefully I'll think back of a few things, and everything else will just be the happiness of the day to day.
And I'll add one more thing. Some people care about this, some people don't. I want to be a person that like touched people in his life, and I gave energy. And I think that I'm walking away and going home and moving to Europe with that, knowing that I affected people in a positive way. So yeah, it's the moments, and it's not like the one moment. It's like those little things that I did for people that I think impacted them. And you know, when they think of me, they'll think of me fondly. And even though everybody's going to die, and it doesn't matter, to me it does in the short term.
But even if they don't appreciate it, you still know.
That I did it. Yeah. Good point.
That's the thing. Like you did it for yourself. You knew it for yourself. And the fact that you got to do it for other people along the way is just the cherry on top. Don't you think?
I think that looking back and saying that, you know, you did life the way you wanted to, that's the biggest, something nobody can rob from you.
Nobody can take it away from you.
Yeah. And good news is there's a lot more to live.
Hopefully. Yeah. I'd like to think there's many, many days and years ahead of my life, but I think that's a great way to end it, and it puts a lot of things into perspective. And I mean, I said it from the very beginning. I'm a big fan of your LinkedIn account. Truly, I enjoy reading your texts, reading your LinkedIn posts, and I think there's so much to offer there. I think even just from this conversation right now, like the idea of putting the dream into perspective every single day, reminding it as your why, doing all this work over and over and over again, doing it for yourself. Like those are just takeaways I have. And it's why I like to push you to create content. I know sometimes it's uncomfortable. I know sometimes it's getting laughed at, getting mocked at, like all these things. But I think social media truly does open doors you didn't know existed. It's happened for me recently. It's what I've been experiencing. And I could have never predicted it. Things that we talked about before we started recording. And I think there's so much out there. And the beautiful thing is, even if you move to the other side of the world, like social media is always there, not only to continue connecting with other people, but also impacting them as you have here. And I see it like the impact you had on your team, the impact you had at Cal. That's what I see of, I'm confident that you can have that same impact, that same dent, on other people. So I'm super, super excited to see what's ahead for you. I know there's content ahead. There's plenty of things ahead, and I know the journey will be great.
Obviously, this is going to seem very staged, but you should keep doing what you're doing. Like, I'm really grateful that podcast brought us together 2 years ago. I think that finding the others is really important. So I'm really glad we did. And I'm truly excited for what's to come for both of us and for both of us together.
Yeah, I think it'll be so good. And it's my favorite thing from the podcast. I'm not optimizing for views. I'm not optimizing for money. I'm optimizing for networking and relationships. And I mean, I think about the podcast, my friends from the podcast are you, Cameron, like these are people that
shout out to Cam. We couldn't see her this weekend, but
shout out to Cam.
Our freaking gold medalist.
Literally the friends that I've made thanks to the podcast, and it's just so powerful. And so one of the things I like to say with Cam is we've talked way more off the podcast than on the podcast, even if she's been on 3, almost 4 times now. But I think it's similar to you. I think we've shared so much off the podcast, and not everything is meant for on the podcast. I think off the podcast is super powerful. But overall, just to make it a full circle and end it here, I think there is a very, very important aspect to support and belief. I think when you have the others, when you find the others and you find those that believe in you equally as much as you believe in yourself, I think that's powerful. And I think you should keep those people close to you. I think those that see the potential, that understand your vision and are pushing you towards it, those people are the ones you want to keep close. And I think to make the little announcement, I mean, hopefully we'll get some vlogs up going for you. We'll get some more podcasts. We'll do some virtually and just keep up with your LinkedIn posts, because I genuinely think that that you have a lot to offer. So to do that and to do that well,
Oh no.
you're going to need a little something. And like I said, I don't want to do this to show off or do this on the record, but truly, I think the only reason I'm doing it on the podcast is because I think it's an important scene in the story that we will someday tell. And I'm just blessed to be a part of it. So with that being said, here's your first mic for your content.
Thanks, man. Oh, this was awkward. Thank you. That's awesome. And I'm a big gift giver, but I'm not a good gift taker. So thank you.
I know it's sometimes uncomfortable, but to me, the only reason, like I said, it's not for this clip right now. It's not for the clip on September 28th, 2024. It's for what this will mean in September 2034. So hopefully this is just the beginning of the story that we will someday tell, and a beautiful scene that we will get to look back at.
Thanks, man. Too many more.
To many more. To everybody that watched on YouTube or listened on Spotify, thank you guys so much. That is it for today, and I will see you all next time.